Alright, so anyone looking at a basic triangle, what's the formula for area of a basic triangle, a normal one with a right angle there? Base times height times half. Good. So you would have learned this. You would have learned this as something like that, or maybe just as a half BH. Okay, or maybe BH over 2, depending who taught you or what book you were looking at. Good, right, that's relying on the fact that this is a perpendicular height. So perpendicular means at right angles to the base. That's very, very important for that formula to work. Right, so for example, you could have a triangle that looks like this, right? The base is down here, but the perpendicular height is not as obvious. You've got to go from the top of the triangle and go straight down, actually on the outside of the shape here, to make a right angle with the ground. Okay, and that's your H. So, depending on the scenario, your perpendicular height can be hard to find. Now this means that for right angle triangles, unless you're given the perpendicular height, which you can see here that you haven't been, then it can be quite hard to find. Now you know trigonometry, so you can actually find what H is here from this diagram. So I'm going to give you a chance to do that now. Find out what H is equal to. Off you go. So you're going to use SOHCAHTOA. You're going to ignore the other half of the triangle. You're just going to focus on the bit on the right here where you've got some information. So you've got 47 degrees, you've got a hypotenuse of 4, and you've got an opposite side there of H. Alright, so if you just remember to label your triangle H, A, and O, you're going to use SOH as the rule here. So that means that sine of an angle is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. So therefore, if we sub in all our values, we've got sine 47 is equal to H over 4. So therefore, 4 times sine 47 equals H. And you can just type that in your calculator and find it out. And we've got 2.93. So H is equal to 2.93 centimeters. Okay, so we've done that. Now really, we can actually simplify the height then as being a function of sine. So if you look at this equation here, for the area of a non-right angle triangle, you've still got the half times the base, okay, but you've also got this sine function in here. Now what that's doing is that's working out the height for you. So if we go back and look at the problem before, okay, what you had was, you had the hypotenuse, which here is called B, okay, so we'll call that B, and you have the other side, the base, which they've called A. Okay, we've actually done, if you look at this line of working just here, we effectively have B times sine of the angle. And the angle is, in this case, labeled as C. Okay, so C is in the corner here. So B sine C. 4 sine 47 is B sine C. Okay, so that's your height. Now if you go back to the very original equation of half base height, all we now need is a half times a base times this value for height. So you're just going to simply get a half times, they've called it A, times B sine C. So that's where the equation comes from. It actually originates from the original triangle area equation, but this time takes into account the sloping side and the angle. So you don't really need to know the derivation, but just to show you that it is actually based on the original one. So you need to have this equation written in your bound reference, of course, to use. So half times A times B times sine C. For any triangle, we'll find you an area. So let's apply it to this one then. An industrial site with the shape of a triangle is to take up the space between where three roads intersect. You can see in the diagram here. They've given you an angle of 16 degrees. Okay, what area is going to be in the middle here? Find that to 2 decimal places. Alright, off you go. So, you just got to remember, when you've got a non-right angle triangle like this, you just got to remember your formula. So area is half times A times B times sine C. And then you sub in your values. So you've got a half times 50 times 95 times sine C. And then you just type that into your calculator. So, what was it? Was it 50? Yeah. Times 95 times sine 16. And so to 2 decimal places, 654.64. So that C there should be 16. So it equals 654.64. And the units is meters squared.